once you have a really strong application, it makes it easier to apply to multiple scholarships and really stand out in the process.
Let's talk really quickly about how to get our kids on a budget. And this is something, we talked about helping our kids learn to be content. But getting them on a budget, I think, is part of that puzzle, right? Because they have to be content with what they have in order to get on a budget. So let's park there for a minute.
Yeah, I would encourage you to walk them through a zero-based budget, which is basically where your income minus expenses equal zero. So you'll help them write out their income at the top and then write out any expenses that they have. And then you want that to basically minus out and equal zero. And I would just do it with pen and paper. We've got an incredible app for the parents called Every Dollar. That's what my family uses.
Oh,
And
okay.
it basically does the zero-based budget online for you. You can just, it syncs with your bank and you can just add the transactions in. It makes it amazingly easy. But for kids for now, I would just walk them through it on paper and just help them understand how that adds up and how the money factors in and, how expenses, you deduct that from your income and things actually cost things and how it all works together.
Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts on bank accounts for kids? Like my girls both have two bank accounts. They have a spending account and a savings account. But to be super transparent and honest with you, we're not great at it. I mean, they have their savings account and then they'll want something, or to go to some event or something. And I'm like, well, we'll just move money from that savings account into your spending account. And then they've got money, which I know is not really the purpose of it. But that's just, how we've done it with them. And I'm like, we really need to get a hold of these accounts. What are your thoughts on bank accounts for kids and how do we manage those with them?
Yeah, I don't have super strong opinions on bank accounts for kids. I think it's just whatever works best for your family. I think, especially depending on how much money it is, it helps kids to actually see cash and understand like the friction of money and how things go back and forth, especially with young kids. I mean, in our family, we still do a piggy bank and keep it pretty simple. But I think it really is just personal preference. I think for a lot of parents, it's a little bit overwhelming to kind of deal with the bank accounts early on. But as they get into high school and when they're having their own job, it can be good to kind of walk through that. And we actually teach all about that in Foundations of Personal Finance, our curriculum. It kind of walks through what is that process of opening up a bank account? What is important to look at in a bank? Is it FDIC insured? What are the different accounts for kids? So kind of walking students through that process, but especially in the younger years, I kind of feel like it's personal preference.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. All right. Let's switch gears for right now. I want to talk about college. I want to talk about how to prepare our kids to go to college debt-free. And we had a guest on, I think it was back in December, and she talked about several different ways to get our kids through college debt-free. She was very similar to you, where she just was like, my parents didn't have money to send me to college. I had to figure it out because I didn't want to have a bunch of debt when I came out. But you were able to win $500,000 in scholarships and got yourself all the way through your master's degree. I mean, that's an incredible feat there. Talk to us about that and how we can prepare our kids to get through college. We're there right now with my oldest. We're looking at possibly college. We're not exactly sure, we're praying about what she wants to do. But the field that she wants to go in may require some college. And so we're looking at that for the first time now. And I'm like, how do we do this? Because it's scary. Tell us about your story.
Yeah. Well, I think with you saying that it's scary, that's such an authentic and honest feeling that a lot of parents feel. They feel overwhelmed by the financial aspect. It's a lot to just process. There's so many different schools. There's so many different routes. It's just overwhelming. And I think the first thing is leaning into the uncomfortable, being willing to have the difficult money conversations where you talk to your kids about, this is our financial situation. We either do or don't have money saved. You're going to be responsible for this. Like having those conversations, that's so important. I think when you look at the media right now, everywhere you turn, there's an article about student loans and the debt crisis and all the people who feel like they're drowning. And when you talk to a lot of these people, which I do on a daily basis, you hear people just say, no one taught me about this in high school. Like, unfortunately, my parents didn't have that conversation with me. I had no idea that they didn't have money for me to go to college. Like, they just weren't aware. So having the courage as a parent, even if you feel shame around money, even if you're frustrated that you're not more prepared, like be willing to have those conversations and then lock arm with your student and say, okay, but we're going to walk this out and I'm going to help you through this. So that was my story. My mom was an immigrant from Venezuela. My dad passed away from cancer when I was 7. And, she was in this country, a widow, overwhelmed, 2 kids, didn't know what to do, and had to really fight through a lot of challenges. But come freshman year, she had the courage to have a conversation with me. And she said, Kristina, I just can't afford to pay for your college education. So you need to start thinking about how you can pay for it. And she had actually heard about scholarships. And she's like, I've heard of these things called scholarships where people will help pay for your education. And so she really lit a fire under me that day. It was a hard conversation. I'll be honest. It's not what every, 13, 14-year-old wants to hear, but I did understand that she was just trying to help. I was like aware of our situation, and we got motivated, and I started reading every book I could find on scholarships. I started interviewing alumni from my high school. I just got on fire to figure out, how can I win these things and go to school debt free? And she locked arms with me and was willing to work through it with me.
Yeah. Yeah. So give us some really practical ways that we can do that, because it is overwhelming. I mean, it's just you hear scholarships and grants and this, that, and you're just like, where do I even start? So where's a good starting point for us?
Yeah. Well, I have a chapter in the curriculum that walks through a lot of tactical steps, but I will say just first sitting down and thinking through the resume portion of it. So a lot of people I talk to are, they have seniors in high school and they're like, I just need to apply. And it's like, take some breathing room to think through, okay, how am I going to put my best foot forward when it comes to these applications, and really create a strategy around that. Because once you have a really strong application, it makes it easier to apply to multiple scholarships and really stand out in the process. So if you have a younger student, that's awesome. I love catching parents when they have middle school students or students that are in their freshman year, because then we can really strategize about, what kind of activities do they want to do to stand out in the process. And in doing that, it's like we want them to do activities that they love. So not only are they doing things that help them stand out for scholarships, but they're building character, they're building leadership, they're learning to work in teams, and they're building these life skills that it's really going to help them in the long run. So that's the real goal to start with. And then from that, we can talk about essays and we can talk about searching for scholarships. But I would start with looking at the foundation.
Homeschool Insights is sponsored by CTC Math. If you're looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com and try it for free. For more great homeschool inspiration and resources, listen to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.